This resin is really straightforward as it's not a true resin, but a composite casting material. With this particular brand, we can mix it to a variety of thicknesses without worrying much about its properties. They tend to be the same no matter how you mix it. For the first coat here, we are looking to capture details, and so there is a balance to be struck between it being so liquidy, it runs everywhere, and it being so thick that it won't accurately capture details and instead trap air bubbles. You can see that my mixture is somewhat sticky. Now it brushes out nicely, but doesn't seem to run all over the place when applied a few millimeters thick. And this is exactly what you should be aiming for. This allows you to capture all the details without any mess or any chasing. It's kind of a thin whipped cream consistency, or somewhere around there, I think. I like to start off by covering the fragile clay wall and also getting into the sharp corners where the clay meets the silicone. Sharp corners are most prone to capturing air bubbles, and so carefully working into these to begin with is very useful and is likely going to leave us with a better result. I take extra care around these areas to make sure there are no air bubbles. After that, it's kind of a free-for-all in regards to where to go. Personally, I like to go from top to bottom usually, but I certainly stray away from this if it's needed. The most important thing to consider for the broad sections is thickness. We want a layer that is thick enough so that it doesn't appear transparent. A layer that is so thin that it appears transparent is too prone to breaking during later stages when material is applied over the top of it. A few millimeters thick tends to be enough for this first layer. I'm a big proponent of working clean. This means cleaning as you go. There are many reasons this is a desirable approach in my opinion. Keeping the top edges of the silicone and clay wall clean means we have a very good visual for where the top of our eventual mold walls will need to be, how tall they will need to be. And this means that we can keep the height of them consistent with the height of our silicone wall, and this is a good approach. Messes tend to compound over time and become worse and worse. So to prevent this, I tend to my mess right away, and I continue to tend to my mess as I progress. This way, at the end, I end up with a clean mold. Controlling thickness is important when working with most materials. Even thickness is good as it means even strength dispersed throughout the monomold piece. More weight in one section means a stronger and heavier section which must be supported by a thinner section somewhere else, and that's not good, of course. And working clean helps you control the thickness. The point of the first layer is to capture details and make sure the monomold and silicone underneath will register together as perfectly as possible. Now, could you skip this layer and go straight to the fiberglass layer? You probably could, and I've seen people do that, but I find that when you do that, the inside of your mold has a bunch of air pockets and potential weak spots where the mold can begin to deteriorate. So while it's possible, I think it's better to play it safe when it comes to mold making. We're so late in the game at this point. There's no reason to take any chances considering where we're at in the process. We're so close to the end, so let's stay focused for a little bit more and do the right thing. Once the first layer of resin is firm to the touch, it's time to reinforce it and actually make this a strong monomold. We do this not by adding more layers, more weight, and more thickness, but by adding a layer of fiberglass. Actually, for monomolds, I add 2 layers of fiberglass for extra strength, considering the abuse these monomolds go through sometimes. My process for doing this has become really refined over the years and yields great results, for me at least, pretty much every time. It's a process geared towards working alone. Now, there are perhaps other ways better suited to working in a team, but I imagine most of you, like me, are working alone. It starts with brushing a layer of fresh resin onto the already dry surface. This resin should be of a slightly thinner consistency compared to the one we used for the first layer. I'm looking to completely cover the surface, but I'm not looking for thickness at all. More resin, of course, at this point means more weight, not more strength. Once the fresh resin is on the surface, I'll lay dry fiberglass down into it and lightly press down. Doing it this way is nice because it keeps my hands much cleaner and my glove changes much less regular. The dry fiberglass sticks to the wet resin and, if lightly tamped down, conforms smoothly to the surface. A fiberglass piece on its own is of no use and offers no strength. It's the overlapping network of all the fiberglass pieces fused together that provides the strength. So each new piece of fiberglass must be overlapping the previous one. This means a little bit of fresh resin is brushed onto the edge of the piece that gets laid down. This ensures a strong bond with no air pockets forming within the layers. And air pockets within the layers can be popped from the inside of the mold, leading to a hole on the inside of our mold, and our silicone will sink into this hole and we won't have proper registration. In order to integrate the walls of our mother mold piece into the hole of the piece and not be a chunk of resin stuck onto the side of a strong piece, we can integrate these walls as well into the hole using fiberglass. I'm not going to run these pieces of fiberglass all the way up the sides of the wall, all the way to the top. If the fiberglass sticks out on the top of the mother mold, it becomes a hazard where I can cut myself. I will, in this scenario, need to sand these fiberglass pieces down somehow later. So, in order to try to avoid giving myself extra work and injuries, I try to work clean and keep all the fiberglass inside the mold and underneath the resin. So I run my fibers up the wall, but not over the top of the wall. This integrates them into the strong hole, but ensures less danger and less cleanup later down the line.